Welcome everyone, Questini here with a discussion about the most unique and interesting campaigns in Total War Warhammer 3. I did a video like this a year ago, but plenty things do change. Patches come and go. I spend a lot more hours playing Immortal Empire, so obviously perspective changes, new races get added, new DLC comes out. Though I want to be clear that the Changeling is not going to be part of this list, nor does he even deserve an honorable mention. He certainly is a very unique campaign, but he's not particularly that interesting. He's also kind of broken because his uniqueness comes from his schemes, but the problem is quite a few of these schemes can be bugged. Great idea, bad execution. In an attempt by Creative Assembly at making a unique campaign just didn't work out from my personal perspective. At number 5, it is Nakari, which can have a fairly interesting and certainly does have a unique campaign in Warhammer 3. To understand Nakari is to understand that Slaanesh plays quite by a few different rules than many other factions. For instance, one of the things Slaanesh can do is using devotees, Slaanesh can summon a disciple army. Now, this disciple army will start taking attrition unless your Slaaneshi corruption is exceptionally high, even higher than 83, as I have it right here. But this is a disposable army that you do have that you can use as Slaanesh. And it can be a full stack of forces. Blood hosts, step aside because the disciple armies are coming. So that's one of the benefits that Slaanesh has. Furthermore, the army playstyle that Slaanesh does embrace for pretty much its entire army is fast movers, high damage, good flanking. That is the Slaaneshi playstyle. But also, it does come with the cost of a lot of units being glass cannon. So you're, with the exception of things like Forsaken, Warriors of Chaos, Chosen of Slaanesh, many of the units you do have as Slaanesh are glass cannon units, including Nakari herself, himself, regardless. And this is obviously going to cause complications because it means you're going to have to be more careful in battles, but you do need to be aggressive as well. You can't just sit in a corner and win battles as Slaanesh. You need to flank. You need to dominate the battlefield. Use the mobility you have. Because if you're just being passive, you will end up losing. So that is certainly a very unique playstyle. And then on top of that, on the campaign map, Nakari has several ways to vassalize a faction. You can vassalize through regular diplomacy. You can subjugate a faction by reducing them to their last element, which is what I did with Alfarian here. Or you can use seductive influence, fill out the bar over here, and then dominate them using diplomacy. That is what makes Slaanesh's campaign so very, very unique in this respect. And also, consider this situation. I've dominated Alfarian. I'm on my way towards Tyrion. Likely he is going to be my next victim. It's not going to be an easy fight, but it is the kind of fight I can win. Actually, where is Tyrion anyway? I have no idea. I sincerely doubt he got wiped out. The AI does tend to switch out its lord sometimes. Now, the reason Nakari isn't higher on this list is, one, Nakari does get the bad auto-resolve result, and replenishment is something that Nakari doesn't really understand. You have no way of increasing replenishment, or very, very few ways of increasing replenishment. I'd probably recommend getting a mod that does increase replenishment, and I'd also recommend getting the auto-resolve mods I've talked about in other videos, because they will make for a better experience. But even in the vanilla experience, conquering Wolfon is certainly a fantastic experience that I'd recommend people play through at least once. It is certainly not an experience you're going to find anywhere else in the game, but it is just a one-pony trick. That's a similar issue with Scarbrand. Though, to be fair, you've also got Tarox and Valkia kind of sharing the spotlight of those legendary lords focused on movement range. You don't quite have the same kind of campaign dynamic. I mean, there are lords that do vassalize, there are lords that do subjugate, but there's no lord that plays the diplomacy game quite in the same manner as Nakari. Now you can argue, well, Azazel can do it. Azazel cannot create cults on the world to start building seductive influence with factions halfway around the world to end up dominating them. Nakari can. So there's something of a difference. Though, to be fair, I think Azazel is better to play overall, because he's a Warriors of Chaos, and Warriors of Chaos are generally better than Slaanesh. So I think this campaign would be much better with higher casualty replenishment and better auto resolve. At number 4, we have Throt the Unclean of the Skaven. While Throt isn't the best legendary lord of the Skaven, he certainly has some very, very unique campaign mechanics for you to utilize. He can customize the vast majority of the units in his armies. From monsters to infantry augments, he can make an army significantly more powerful. And very different as well. He can make each unit in an army work differently, play differently, have a different role through the augments that he does have available, beyond having the usual Skaven playstyle. But that's not all that there is with Throt. It's not just that he has the most powerful individual unit customization system in the game. He also, of course, comes with a legendary hero in Gottrich, and he also has the Growth Vat, which can give you some incredibly powerful monsters in your campaign that you can recruit for free. So Throt is all about the monstrous units of the Skaven in Total War Warhammer 3. It is a fun campaign. It can be an interesting campaign. The sheer level of customization for your armies, for your individual units, is off the charts, is far and above any other campaign in the entire game, and it certainly opens up a different playstyle for a Skaven as opposed to the weapon teams or the ninja Skaven playstyle. Though you still should use Night Runners and Gut Runners even in this campaign, at least early on until you can get a lot of monsters going with a lot of augments. And then you unleash the horde of monsters. I mean, it's kind of sad for poor Trog, because Trog is supposed to be like this monster lord, and it's like, you're going to be using more monsters than he is. But regardless of that, why is Throt not higher on the list? Well, his starting position sucks. Skaven are a good race. There's no argument on that. But consider Throt's starting position. He starts with Hell Pit at tier 1. He takes for Strogoth. He has to deal with the siege, which is like an incredibly painful experience. And then he can either try and control the entire province, which means dealing with Castalton. That's going to be fun. Or he can go deal with everything else. Kislev is not good Skaven territory, suffice to say. Even with the changes in terrain, that did make it better. It was significantly worse before Shadows of Change because you didn't have provincial capitals in these elements. Now you do have provincial capitals, but your campaign progress is still going to be slowed down in the early game compared to others, and you're going to face far more annoying battles than the other Skaven legendary lords. There's a reason why I do like Snitch's campaign the most, and that's because his starting position is significantly better than many others. And that's why I have to deduct points from Throt. Otherwise, yeah, he's a great legendary lord. If only he didn't have just clan rat recruitment available from the very beginning of the campaign. I feel like Skaven are one of those races where they have an incredibly powerful arsenal of units, an incredible arsenal of heroes and lords, but their basic units, Skaven slaves and clan rats, are freaking terrible to recruit in a campaign. And number 3, we have Grom the Paunch of the Greenskins. Not the best legendary lord of the Greenskins. Grimgor obviously occupies that position, especially with the changes of the Chaos Dwarves. It's really the terrain, But Grom, in terms of uniqueness of his campaign, stands heads and shoulders above everyone else. Because he plays like a regular greenskin lord, but he does have many twists associated with his largeness, let's call it that. While he isn't covering himself in glory with his starting position, Massive Oracle only being a tier 1 settlement to the barracks, and that being pretty crap actually to deal with, he does have such an incredible potential from even the very beginning of the campaign that it gets to an absurd level. To understand what I'm talking about here, I want to point this out. You start in Bretonnia. The climate of Bretonnia is unpleasant climate. Yes, I'm using a mod to remove climate penalties, but it doesn't matter for Grom. You can play an entire campaign as Grom in Bretonnia, and you will conquer and annihilate everyone that stands against you. Imagine a campaign where you're fighting the entirety of Lorem and annihilating them, fighting Karl Franz, fighting the entirety of Bretonnia, and then picking a fight with Ulfuan at the same time, and not only surviving, but winning. That is Grom the Paunch in a nutshell, and this guy's power level is absurd. He is an incredibly powerful Legendary Lord as a result of that. But what makes him so powerful is his cauldron. So let's consider his cauldron. He starts with the ability of getting regeneration, but shortly thereafter, you will get the ability of literally printing money in a campaign, which is where things are going to get very, very interesting. So he'll get ocean clams because you will be able to sack a Bretonian settlement from turn 1, which will literally print you money. Also, he has much higher replenishment than any Greenskin Legendary Lord because he does start with the Giant River Troll Hag, and he'll get that benefit for extra replenishment as well. And then he can customize things even further. You want to get increased number of projectiles, fire ammo, explosive damage ammunition, and so on and so forth. You can do so. The cauldron is incredible for Grom. You can go to Ulfuan and conquer Ulfuan within the first 20 turns. Not many people can say that. Nakari can do it, but let me put it like this. You can do it as Nakari within the first 20 turns, but it is going to be a nightmare of a situation. Grom just shows up, obliterates everyone, Tyrion slows him down, but that's kind of it. You do so with nasty skulkers and goblin archers, and you annihilate everything in your path. You can't lose, you can't run out of money. Even though you're the only Legendary Lord in the entire game with Grom that has unpleasant climate around him, and he doesn't care that much about him. That's what makes Grom so incredibly powerful, so incredibly interesting. There's so much fun to be had with this starting position. Sure, some mods could help it, climate penalties removal, auto-resolve, because Greenskins don't necessarily have the best auto-resolve in the world. But overall, even in vanilla state, and that's not necessarily something you can say about a lot of Legendary Lords, Grom is just a bucket load of fun of a campaign. The reason he's not higher is that climate situation is going to come bite him in the ass in terms of a long campaign. That's the issue. He's great for a short campaign when you're conquering Ulfuan, but once you finish conquering Ulfuan, you kind of realize, well, the only suitable climate that I might have in the rest of the campaign is all the way in the Badlands, which is pretty far away. So that's kind of the issue. The long-term implications for Grom aren't that great, but the short-term implications for Grom, he is in another universe. And number 2 is Alith Anar of the High Elves, who plays considerably different than all the other Legendary Lords of the High Elves, including Elfarion, who also has his own unique campaign mechanics, and certainly different than Alariel, who, again, she can be unique, but Alith Anar really takes the cake when it comes to uniqueness for a High Elf Legendary Lord. While he is limited by climate, only having Wasteland and Frozen being suitable climate to him, that quite frankly is enough. Given the fact that he starts with a bunch of frozen territory around him, there's just a bunch of spiky elves to get rid of, and then a bunch of Norskins to also get rid of, and Be'lakor as well in a campaign. Here's the thing though, Alith Anar isn't really a High Elf Legendary Lord. No. He's a Skaven Legendary Lord masquerading as a High Elf one. Just like the Skaven, his default movement stance is stalking. So whenever he is attacking with an army, he has a chance to ambush. He can use the underway as well. He is so Skaven that he actually has murder assassins to instantly kill any faction leader or hero on the campaign map without fail. That is who Alith Anar is. And you gotta freaking love the master ambusher of the High Elves. You know, if only Oxyotl got something like this, which he doesn't. The stock stance is not available for him. It's not available for Skarsenik, who probably should also have it as well. What I love about this campaign is not only does Alith Anar play very different, just because he has two stances the other High Elven Legendary Lords don't have, just because he has 12% missile strength for a faction that's focused on missile strength, and he also gets campaign movement range after winning a battle. So there's a bit of Tarax and Valkia thrown in the mix as well for him. Oh yes, that's the kind of Legendary Lord that Alith Anar is on the campaign map. But what's great about his campaign can be pretty brutal. The reason for that is because he starts surrounded by Dark Elves, and Dark Elves hate the High Elves. They despise them, utterly despise them. They're quite likely to declare war on you, and there's nothing quite like having Harganev with its numerous and powerful armies invading your territory. Or Malekith doing so as well. Or dealing with Zylostra, maybe even ending up in a fight with Katep, Morathi, and others. That is the campaign you're going to get. It can be a brutal campaign, especially since Be'lakor has a tendency to want to invade you via the sea. Look at him, he's already preparing for just that, the cheeky little bastard, in this campaign. Yeah, Be'lakor does this kind of thing, so you have to protect your coastline. The way I personally do it, I never build garrisons, I leave an army over here to deal with that, because a High Elf army can defeat Be'lakor. It's not necessarily going to be pleasant, but it can be done. And meanwhile, I send Alith Anar to deal with everything else. It is a campaign that can go either very well or very, very badly. But regardless, it is certainly going to be a challenging campaign, but also a challenging campaign in the right way. It's certainly a unique campaign situation where you're surrounded on all sides by enemies, but you have the tools needed to succeed against those enemies. There's a lot of unique elements to Alith Anar, and I have to remind people, this campaign was available for free with, the Queen of the Crown DLC for Warhammer 2. Maybe Creative Assembly should do more of these campaigns and less of the Changeling. And of course, and number one is Oxyotl of the Lizardmen. The Lizardmen are okay as a race, they're just not top tier, but Oxyotl is a completely different beast than most Lizardmen campaigns. But what makes him so? Well, for starters, he has every single climate suitable in the game for his campaign. He has the hidden sanctums available in his campaign, which can give him a ridiculous level of power, from an upkeep benefit, post-battle benefit, and also an enormous recruitment benefit. Recruitment costs reduced by minus 50%. Just to cover some of the benefits that you can get from all of this, including military benefits. Oxyotl is both great at offense and defense, attacking a territory in which Oxyotl has built hidden sanctums, gotten things like the restored glyph wall of Sotek, or the polished glyphs of Sotek, is just really asking for trouble, among other things. But we have to go even further on this. What makes Oxyotl unique and interesting are his missions around the world. Oxyotl fights chaos. He's there to kick ass and take names and chew bubblegum, and he has no bubblegum in this world. He gets these visions of the old ones that give him significant campaign benefits. Crucially, he can teleport to do these missions on the campaign map. In this case, I can't do it because he's besieging a settlement, as I teleported already last turn to the Lair of Change to go deal with Kairos. But the level of power that is available through this is significant. And it gets even more so. Because beyond the fact that you can teleport into the middle of hostile chaos territory and just beat the crap out of them, including Archeon or Bellicor or anything like that, not only can you get that kind of benefit in your campaign, but furthermore, you will gain campaign benefits. Various diplomatic benefits, faction effects, like income from raising settlements, for instance, plus 20% in this case, and more in your campaign as you go through it. What is fairly substantial about this is his ability of getting a significant number of Blessed Spawnings. Now, Blessed Spawnings are available to all Lizardmen Legendary Lords, but Oxyotl can get more Blessed Spawnings than anyone else because of the mission rewards. And these ramp up as you play through the campaign. So if you want to play a campaign as the World Police, fighting chaos and the forces of disorder around the world and helping the forces of order, Oxyotl is your go-to guy. Because of his campaign mechanics, he can teleport to a location on the map, beat someone up when they're least suspecting it, and then recruit an army and fill it with Blessed Spawnings if he has enough of them. So suddenly there's 2 of them in the same place. Very few Legendary Lords can beat that, even assuming Oxyotl had a bad army, which he does not have a bad army. In fact, he has a fairly incredible army. Chameleon Skinks are not necessarily the finest units in the world, unless they're under Oxyotl. Oxyotl reduces their upkeep and gives them additional melee attack, melee defense, leadership, and speed and missile damage per experience rank. His special skill line, which I haven't unlocked here, but his special skill line goes even further with that. He gives them snipe, so they can stay in stealth while shooting at the enemy. And you also give stock for all skink infantry. The only thing that I have an issue with Oxyotl is the fact that he doesn't have the stock stats as Alith Anar. But in terms of campaign potential, having a dynamic and interesting and very unique campaign, there is no other that compares to Oxyotl. I think the Changeling could, but the Changeling, just plainly sucks as a campaign. They were kind of trying to go for something similar there, though. They just flat out failed with respect to it. Whereas with Oxyotl, they struck gold with the way they designed his campaign. It's a fun campaign, it's an interesting campaign, and there's no other campaign that's quite like it, with the exception of the Changeling and all the issues that come with that. Costine signing out. If you enjoy my content, consider checking out my Patreon or my PayPal, and stay tuned for more.